All right, buckle up, everybody, because we are doing Movieverse stuff again. And if I had the foresight, I probably would have done Movieverse stuff like in a group, maybe do all of the Movieverse Nemesis Primes together, but I did not think that far ahead. So instead, we are now looking at Takara's MB-20 Nemesis Prime from the last night. The MB is for Movie the Best, but it's like an anniversary series. And this is the Nemesis Prime version of Optimus Prime from the last night. And this is based on that really weird mold that a lot of people seem to like, the one with the head that pops off sometimes. I was never into that mold at all. But once I started collecting Nemesis Primes, I was kind of like, well, I'll at least consider this one. Then I was watching some videos on it, and I was kind of like, you know what? I actually kind of like what I'm seeing. I like how it handles certain kibble things. Let me give it a try. And then I got it, and I was genuinely shocked to find out I actually really like this thing. So we're going to look at that today. This is the last night Optimus Prime's truck mode. There's a little back in there, but whatever. This is last night Optimus Prime's truck mode. It's the long-nosed truck with the flames on the side, and it is kind of ridiculous how many different ways companies try and turn this into a robot wearing knight armor. But there are some interesting things they did here. And this is just that truck, but in a darker blue with a bit more of a muted color scheme. And honestly, I actually think this is interesting because it's like a different take on Nemesis Prime. It's not just black and red and teal. It's not even black. It's dark blue. And not like, oh, it's black, but it's, if you look closely, dark blue. This is straight up dark blue. And I don't know. I like that as like a change of pace. I think that's a clever idea. This truck mode rolls pretty well. It's sculpted pretty well. It is a little bit messy. Something I was noticing along here. It's like right along here. This is pretty messy and exposed. It's not like distractingly so, but it is something that I kind of noticed. But then like around the back, it's surprisingly filled in back here and back here. The underside stores the weapons, which is super cool. I like that you can just kind of hide the weapons away on the underside like that. And yeah, it's a neat like, I'm not a big truck guy, so I'm not like gonna say it's a neat vehicle mode, but like it's successful and looks good for what it is. I'll say that. I appreciate the fact too that I don't know that you have clear plastic on this. You've got black for the windows and the side windows, but like the blues are the same throughout, the reds are the same throughout. There's no color mismatching at all, which is extremely nice. There's some nice chrome up here and on the front and on all the rims and on the fuel tanks and around the smokestacks in the back. It's a nicely done vehicle mode and a nicely done figure in general. Also pretty big because it is like a, leader class, I think, is what this was originally designated at. So we bring in Dinobots, Bova Prime, and Samus. You can see that this is a pretty big truck. And I'll get out of here. Now, regrettably, I'm not going to be doing a truck mode comparison with the Unique Toys Challenger mold because I don't have the enthusiasm and energy to do that transformation off camera a bunch of times. Sorry, but I'll show them with Burnout. Yeah, next to Burnout, this really drives home how big this truck is. They almost look like they could even be to scale. Like it's not exact, but it almost looks like they could maybe, possibly, if you squint, be in scale. There he is with Siege mold. So yeah, big truck. And for the heck of it, here he is with Legacy Scourge. So here he is with just two long-nosed trucks together, basically. And finally, for our most important of size comparisons, here he is with the Duck Tank. All right, now before we transform this guy, if you like this video or any other videos that I've done, and if you like NemeSeptember and you want me to keep going with it next year, I do have a Patreon and a Coffee, links to both at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Also, if you want to support the channel without money, which I totally get, you could always do the typical YouTube thing of like, comment, share, subscribe. Now, transform this guy. We are going to first remove the weapons. So the sword just slides out. There are these little tabs here that are holding it in place. So you just slide it out a bit, and that comes right out, and that'll go off to the side. The axe is a little bit more complex. You kind of want to twist and pull because it's tabbed in. Like these little tabs are holding up. There's also a little tab down here, so you kind of want to twist it and pull, and it'll pop out. There you can see the little tab right there. It's going into this little slot on the handle on either side. So there's that. And now that the weapons are out of the way, we can take care of the kibble chunk. So I'm going to pop the sides open here and try to disconnect this from here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it is tabbed in. All right. It's hard to tell because the panels come together very solidly. Okay, so with this untabbed, this can now untab from the sides here. This can kind of come out and down a bit. And then this blue chunk here unplugs from the entire back of the vehicle. And now we're left with all of this. So for this, we'll just deal with this one first. So this becomes an accessory, if that wasn't immediately obvious. So what you want to do is fold this in, fold this in, and this kind of folds around, and this folds out like that. Show it from this side. I want to bring this in, and this fuel tank folds in as well. And then this comes around and kind of sits like this. Then this flap folds out like that. Now, I can take these wheels, and these will actually, first, you want to hinge this down to get a little clearance. And the wheels pop out and swing 90 degrees and will actually click in place in both positions. This flap comes down. This whole assembly can now accordion in, though before we accordion that in, we want to take these purple flaps here and these shift down to fill in this section. It's not much of a move, but it goes from here down to here. And now this can all shift up, and it will kind of click into place. And that makes a big old shield, and then this can just fold out for now and go off to the side with the sword and the axe. Okay. Now for the rest of this thing, which is interesting. So something to note when you transform this thing, you do want to have the arms kind of like this, where they're down and backwards. It seems counterintuitive, but that's how it fits with all that other stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna take the roof section and pull it up because it actually tabs in here. This tab sits into a little slot section here, and then there are tabs on the front here. Kind of see these two tabs here, the tab in there. So you want to pull this up first. Then you can take these panels and separate them out, swing them out. There we go. I'm going to take this panel back here. This will flip up and peg in to the back. And this can just sit like this for now. Well, actually, this will sit like this, but we also want to take this armature and bring this up until it clicks into place. And that will just stay like that. Okay, now, and straighten out the arms, rotate them around. I honestly don't know if it's necessary to rotate the fists or not, but that's what I did for the transformation, so I'm rotating them back now. So now we've got this strangeness happening. This can come down a bit. That will give us the room we need to take this piece, just this here, this piece here, this blue armature that these flaps are on, this whole thing swings back and kind of clicks in at 90 degrees. So with that done, now we can straighten this out the rest of the way. We also want to split the legs because they don't quite go down all the way otherwise. Things are straining there. That's my bad. So bring this down all the way, then rotate this 180 degrees. This flap comes down. These flaps can come in. Or no, they actually fold back like this and then come in. This basically, there's this armature here. It folds back on this hinge and then folds forward on this other hinge. And that gets them to line up a little bit more appropriately for being hip skirts, which is what they're supposed to be. Okay, now let's finish the legs. Why not? I want to take the grill piece and kind of tilt it out a little bit and bring it up because there's like a little tab here that sits inside there. So I want to tilt it out just a little bit, bring it up, rotate it 180 degrees, and that will just sit on the back. Then take this entire cab chunk, rotate that around 180 degrees. Take this piece and rotate that. Doesn't really have like a specific orientation, so I just generally rotate it about 180. And then flip out the toe or foot. And there is one leg. And the other leg is the same deal. I want to bring this up, rotate it 180 degrees and sit it back down. Rotate all of this out. Rotate this down. And rotate the wheel chunk around. And there we go. Legs done. The upper body. I'm going to take the arms, which are sitting like this. They come back on this slightly strange angle and just thunk into place, and can rotate the biceps so that they're more properly oriented. Bring it back. Click it into place. There we go. Take the roof section and split it. Split it. There we go. And it comes out on separate armatures and will come down to make shoulder pads. And then the part that sometimes makes for funny YouTube content, but doesn't do it in this mold. You just bring this down and it'll make the head pop out. There are little pegs and peg holes on the side, so you want to make sure to line those up. As you bring this down, it will cause the head to pop up. And there we go. There is movie the best Nemesis Prime in robot mode. And this doesn't look bad. He's definitely, I would say aesthetically, I prefer the look of Challenger and some other third-party renditions of this design. But it's kind of like what I said in the Orionville video, where I just like how it's the same design but interpreted differently, which I think is neat. And this mold does do some interesting things. Like, I love the weapons stuff. I do also really like how the bits of the truck end up becoming hip and shoulder armor. Even if it's not super accurate, I appreciate it, and it's surprisingly good at getting out of the way. Like, I really like how these kind of tuck back along the body so that it looks like it sits a little bit more naturally with the waist. It still sticks forward a bit, but not that much. And the shoulder flaps are just enjoyable. And yeah, it's a pretty cool for what it is figure. It's also kind of, I guess if you really, like, you could argue it does have a bit of a messiness to it, and I guess I wouldn't disagree, but at the same time, it's, for what it is, surprisingly clean. Like, you've got the wheels on the sides of the legs, but those are kind of supposed to be there. The flaps are definitely flaps, but like, they do kind of come off as intentional. And around back, the back is actually really clean because of how everything transforms. It's just like back around here where things start to get a little messy, but the backs of the calves, I don't think it's that bad. You do have some hollowness back here, but that doesn't bother me too terribly. And, you know, like the way that all this comes together, like this whole chunk is supposed to sit in there, so it's understandable why that's hollow. And they even went as far as to add these little spring-loaded doors. So when you transform it, these go in to accommodate this chunk down here. And then when you turn them into robot mode, they pop out and fill in the inside of the leg. So when you're looking at them from the front or the side, you don't see that hollowness. And that's really cool. I like that. This is a pretty neat, all things considered, robot design that does, if anything, the thing that kind of hampers it for me is these ratchets, because they kind of hinder the articulation in some ways. That's a little disappointing, but we'll get to that when we get to the actual articulation. But yeah, it's cool. And like with this Prime design, you get a decent amount of new colors here. There's a lot more silver. That dark blue looks really good with the kind of darker gunmetal-y silver and the dull red, but now you also get some coppery gold in a few places. That chest looks really nice and intricate. You get the flames on the gauntlets, the flames on the sides of the shins, but they also kind of translate to the outsides as well because of the wheel wells. It's cool. It's a cool, it's definitely weird, and I don't necessarily think it's the best live action Prime design, but like for what it is of its time, it was a pretty decent design, really. Also, even with all the detail going on here, they actually molded and painted a bunch of detail on the underside of that flap. Like, that is wild how much detail is there. When you bring this in, like, you do get like those details that were painted do show, but I feel like they didn't even need to do that because I don't think it would have been that obvious that it was missing if they didn't. But like, just the layering and the sculpting in this chest and the way they use the colors is fantastic. And, you know, I generally don't have much nice to say about the live action Michael Bay movies, but this is cool for what it is. Now, the head is, well, it's Bayverse Optimus Prime, but Nemesis-y, so he's got the red on the side, the dark purple eyes, looks all brooding and angry. I wonder if this has, I noticed there seems to be a little thing back here. Makes me wonder if he does the face swap that so many other Primes do. It doesn't seem like he does. Grab the spudger just to double check. Oh, no, looks like, yeah, okay, he does the face swap thing. So I can bring this up, rotate it around, and bring it back down, and line it up properly. We'll bring it back down, and come on. I don't want to push too hard on the face because I don't want to snap it off. But yeah, I'm not going to push it down all the way because I just want to switch back to the faceplate. But like, yeah, it's sculpted pretty nicely there. He's got the purple eyes as well. And I like that you got the option. I, for one, am a staunch believer in, if you're going to do a Nemesis Prime in live action, like especially like the Bayverse aesthetic, then the faceplate has to be what you go with for the Nemesis Prime. But yeah, it's cool that he's got the face swapping gimmick. It works, but it's a nice sculpt. The head looks a little bit like flared at the bottom, which is a little irregular, but I don't mind it. It's just irregular. But this is a nice sculpt, some nice detailing. I also like the added detailing of how you've got this blue paint stripe going along the side here, but when you turn it this way, you can see that it kind of, like the blue is there, but it kind of fades out. Almost like this red is infecting this side of the head. I don't know if that's actually a paint error or intentional, but I think that's cool. Now, for articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so you get a pretty decent amount of side-to-side tilt, a little bit up, decent down, and you can look left and right. Can't go all the way around because stuff starts banging into other stuff around the collar, but you can get... Never mind, I lied. You can go all the way around. So, yeah, you got that. The shoulder flaps can get up and out of the way pretty well, so you can rotate the arms around. They rotate at an angle because of the way they click in. They're kind of set back further, so they kind of rotate inward, so you want to bring the arm out as you rotate it around. But they can go all the way around. They can go in and out. You can de-transform it to get the arms kind of more lined up. Like, what's interesting is if you bring it forward, it works as a butterfly joint, which is not, not unwanted. But the problem with this is when you bring the arms forwards, they look a little bit more normal. They do not sit correctly with the head. The shoulders are too far forward. So it's a thing to consider, but this does allow the arms to rotate a little bit more naturally. Of course, you could also just not click them in and just leave them kind of loose, so you can pose them that way, but this weight would not hold the shield, which we'll get to later, but that will not be able to hold the shield like that. And then the biceps do rotate just above the elbow. You get a 90-ish, 90-degree elbow bend. You get wrist swivel. And the thumb, just the thumb, moves out. And this is kind of like what I was talking about. I hinted at it earlier, but like the ratchets in some of these joints, you don't get what I think is enough detents. Because like the arms, this is as straight down as they go, and then it's 1, 2, 3 clicks and they're all the way out. So like it's enough to get by, but it still doesn't feel like enough clicks. And then for the elbows, you get 4 clicks to 90, which again is not terrible, but it just doesn't seem necessary to have things be that clicky. For the waist does rotate. It's necessary for the transformation. It can go all the way around, but the problem is you've got all of this stuff kind of in the way, and the hip skirts and everything stay where they are, so the waist rotates beneath that. So I feel like you're better off doing subtle waist rotation than anything major. But the hip skirts do get out of the way, and the legs can kick. The front skirt can also get out of the way. The legs can kick forward that far, and the ratchets on the legs, the hips are like, look at how many ratchets there are, or how many detents. That's so much better than what you get in the arms. Can only go back that far because of the junk in the way. With the hip skirts completely out of the way, the legs can go out to 90. If the hip skirts are in the way, they can go out to, about like this if you want the hip skirt to stay somewhat lined up with the body, but like the further up you bring it, the more it pushes that out. You get a thigh rotation just above the knee. You get a 90-degree knee bend. Can't really go any further because of the way everything is sculpted. There's like the inside of the shin basically is up against that, so you're not going to bend that knee any further. And surprisingly, you do also get some okay foot articulation. This whole chunk is on a ball joint, so it actually gives you some tilt as well as some rotation and some up and down movement. This transformation joint can also rotate, so you can use that as like an additional ankle tilt. It doesn't look the best, but you can use it. And you can kind of use it in conjunction with the rotation to kind of keep the foot lined up with the shin, so it makes it look slightly less awkward. But yeah, pretty decent. And then you can also move the toe down. So articulation on this guy is, for what he is, surprisingly decent. And he is surprisingly decent looking. Okay. Now for the accessories. The shield has a peg back here that can peg onto the back and just sit back there. And it does actually, like, he's not fallen over, so holds it pretty well. The weapons can also store on the back. The sword can just slide through here and store like that. The axe, much like before, I'll get the sword out of the way so you can see. There's these little, like section with these little cutouts just above where this tab or slot is. These go into, or rather go inside. Yeah, they go inside these little clips here. So you can bring that in and kind of rotate that in place. So you can have him store his entire arsenal on his back. Or, okay, maybe not the entire arsenal. I thought you could still plug the shield in with all of that going on, but apparently not. Then there's... Okay, so this is something that I want to talk about real quick. This fold-out thing here that looks like an obvious thing that's supposed to like slide onto something, this is not for this figure. This is something that is supposed to go with a different figure. I don't remember which one. I may bother looking it up, I may not, but basically if you get this guy, don't worry about this. You can just leave that. It's totally unimportant. It serves zero purpose in robot or vehicle mode for this figure, so don't bother with it. But you can have him, like, I thought it was something to have him hold it, because he has like a tab inside the palm there, which you can barely see. There's like a tab. I thought this was supposed to slide over that. That does not. No. I tried so many times. That is not how it works. This does not go into the hand. It does not slide over that tab. It just doesn't work like that. So don't bother. What you do is you just peg it into the forearm. Just use that peg to peg it in. This is something where I fold this out of the way just so that it gives the fist a little more clearance. But you really don't need to... Come on, peg in. So yeah, you really don't need to worry too much about that other piece. So you can rotate that however you want. Get this set however you want. And now he's got his big old shield, and that looks... Zoom out so you can see it. That looks pretty cool. And you're free to use the other hand, or both hands if you want, because you don't have to put the shield in there, but you can give him the sword, which has a little slot on the hilt that just pegs into the tab on the inside of the hand, and then the thumb kind of closes in around it. And that will give him his sword. So yeah, you got options with this guy, which is very cool. I like the options. I like having so many weapons. Like, normally, you all, if you've watched this movie, if you've watched this channel long enough, no, I generally am not like the biggest fan of when a figure comes with a ton of accessories, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to remember them all, keep track of everything. Sometimes they get in the way. They just kind of impede things. They're annoying to keep track of, etc., etc. But the reason why I actually like all of the accessories that this guy comes with is because they have a place to go. No matter how you end up, however you decide to display this guy, you can have him hold everything. The shield is part of the truck. The sword and axe store in the truck. So you really can just, you never have to leave the accessories anywhere else. You can just keep them on the robot, which, yes. More figures need to do that. I know plenty do, but it'd be nice if even more did. Anyway, I feel like this video is kind of all over the place, so I'm just going to stop talking. So, now that we've looked at all the accessories, quickly the size comparisons, and this is like still relatively old school in terms of leader expectations for sizes. So he's tall. He is a pretty tall fella compared to the usual size comparisons anyway. Get them out of here and bring in Siege. The Siege mold, again, tall, because this is Voyager. This is a leader, but like old school leader, or older school leader. Not like Hunt for the Decepticons old school, but not too terribly long after that. But he does not hold a candle height-wise to this thing. And this thing, now, this is not the Unique Toys Challenger. This is not Unique Toys Challenger in Nemesis colors. This is, I forget the exact name of the company, but this is an oversized knockoff of Challenger in Nemesis colors. So, yeah, this is not indicative of how big this guy would look next to Challenger, but this is how big he is next to the oversized knockoff. Which I do maintain this is a very cool figure, but it's also sometimes obnoxiously large for me. I have my own like shelf issues when it comes to space, so like other people might be able to fit this guy no problem. For me, it's just like maybe he's a little smaller. Would have been nice, but whatever. And finally, let's bring this mess to a close by looking at the duct tank. And that does it for Takara's MB-20 movie, the best, whatever. Last night, Nemesis Prime. This is a very cool figure. I am genuinely surprised, impressed, and, happily surprised with how cool this guy is and how much I like him. I just wish that those ratchets were a little bit more forgiving, because that's just, it sits so close to the body, and if I bring it out one click, it sits so far back, like just one thing in between. But the ratchets are way too solid to cheat them, so I basically just have to kind of make do with something like this if I just want them to look semi-relaxed but still ready to go. It's just I just think it would be nice if those ratchets were a little bit less intense. But like the sculpting and paintwork on this guy is great. Even though I scoffed at this guy initially when I was looking at him, I do actually really like the transformation. It does some really fun things in its own rights and does some interesting things with the leg transformation, the way the arms just kind of tuck into the sides. I'm not saying it's necessarily clever, it's just interesting. It's a different approach. And I love how the back section of the truck can become this big shield. That's really cool. It's a neat figure. Which is, like most movie the best stuff, kind of a pain in the butt to find now for definitely for the original MSRP, but just kind of the aftermarket has not been kind to, or I should say will not be kind to the wallets of anyone who's after movie the best figures at this point. But who knows? Maybe you get lucky. I got this guy for a comparatively decent price. It can happen. But anyway, that's enough rambling. I feel like that's all I've been doing. So that's it for MB-20. What do you all think of this guy? Or this mold? Because this mold, even with the shield, I think actually did get a couple other releases too, or at least one other, I think. But whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and we've got at least one more Movieverse Nemesis Prime coming up next. You'll see which one when we get there.